Good afternoon, everybody, or should I say good evening? It looks like an afternoon with daylight savings time and the bright sun here at Art Rooney Stadium at the up on the bluff at Duquesne University. I'm Matt Weiss, and this is the first ever broadcast of T-Bird Radio, 42.1 The Bird, bringing you the season opener and the home opener for your Pittsburgh Thunderbirds against a familiar opponent, the Detroit Mechanix. And we'll get into formalities soon, but the first pull is in the air, and Max Shepard picks it up and sends it up to Jonathan Mast in the middle of the field. Mast looks and swings it over to Sam Van Dusen, and those are handlers you're going to be hearing a lot of over the course of this season. Van Dusen directing traffic. Slings a forehand up. Now it's on the home sideline, and it's in the hands of Jimmy Toll. Toll being marked closely, and he hits an in-cutter. That's Watt. Watt throws it out to Captain Mark Fedorenko. The disc is still in Thunderbird territory, but Fedorenko remedies that by hitting Ethan Beardsley just past midfield on the far right-hand sideline. And Ethan throws the disc to Toll. Ethan making an upfield throw. We don't usually see that. Max Shepard fakes the hammer over there on the cone, and he tosses it to Jonathan Mast, who sends it back to him, and Max Shepard opens the scoring for the season with a layout from Jonathan Mast. And so, folks, we barely had a chance to say hello, and already it's 1-0, and you see the Thunderbirds moving the disc with a brand new offense. Some names you won't hear this year are names like Max Thorne or Tyler G. Girolamo or Patrick Earls, Anson Reprimand, but those names that you heard, Jimmy Toll, Max Shepard, and Sam Van Dusen, those are going to be the mainstays of the Thunderbirds offense. The Detroit Mechanix have a few new players this year, and we'll undoubtedly be meeting them. And I hope you'll forgive me as I get used to two new things here. Our first two games are going to be audio only, and I will be learning this skill of bringing you a game that you can't see, just as I learned this new Thunderbirds lineup. But Joe Besser catches the disc. We don't have to learn his name. We've known it for a long time. The disc is swung out and is dropped. It hits Fauerbach right in the hands, and he drops it. The disc is sent up to another new Thunderbird, Mo Jada. Mo comes down with the disc, and that was unfortunate. It is cold and windy up here on the bluff, and Fauerbach had a disc right in his belly. Carl Fauerbach, big guy from out of NIU and Northern Indiana University, and he just put it right down there on the carpet here, and now it's 2-0 with 11 minutes left to go in the game. Mo Jada is a Pittsburgh player, a mainstay, guy out of Michigan State, and fast as lightning, and Thunderbirds are thrilled to have him join the roster this year and are expecting big things out of him. Now we're having a look here at the Thunderbirds out on the field, and a few more new Thunderbirds who you'll be getting to know this year. I think we're probably going to see some of Patrick McMullen. A big pull for the Thunderbirds. Looks like it might settle down out of bounds, and it does. And the puller there was, looks to me like John Buss pulled that one. Mo Jada is out covering a handler, and waiting at the middle of the field is Pat McMullen, as I said. Meanwhile, but downfield your trucks Trimble, and we got a big hug right off the bat from the brick mark, and it's perfect, the perfect hug to Hallberg. Hallberg catches it just 5 yards out. He sends up a floater, and underneath it, Trimble, oh my goodness, it goes through 2 or 3 different players, and then trailing the play right behind one of the Mechanics, and we can't quite get that number yet. It's Carl Fauerbach managed to track that one down, and it looked like it was going to be a block. The Mechanics came out right off of the brick, and they had a deep cutter, and running deep with that cutter was number 55 for the Thunderbirds. I'm not quite sure. He's not on my list here. It looks like it might be John Diamichis. Diesel usually wears number 50, but it looks like he switched to number 55 this year. That wasn't reflected on my roster, so I apologize for that. But we're going to be catching up with these. Looks like Donkey Angeletti was out there. David Angeletti, Jack Heffron too. Those are names you're going to get used to hearing on the defensive side of the disc. But quarterbacking the offense today and most days is going to be Jonathan Mass, number 2, who picks it up on the home sideline, and he swings a backhand break out to Max Shepard, who's going to be doing a lot more handling. Lacing an in-cut back home to the home sideline is Fedorenko. He pushes Bubbles off on the mark. That's Capiabo. And now Mast has it. He sends it wide to Sam Van Duzen with that stocking cap on his head, and he's being very aggressively marked by Klena. And he laces one up to Shepard, who jumps up, catches it pretty as you please, about 13 yards out on the far sideline, and then throws an inside out to Fedorenko, who catches it in the end zone for a goal. Thunderbirds up 3-1, and we're not 2 minutes into this season, and already 4 points up on the board. And now rolling out onto the field for the Thunderbirds, we got Anthony Kahn, number 21. Number 11, Ryan Siccioni will be out there. Diamichis will come out on defense. Looks like we've got Jordan Robarge ready to pull the disc. And another addition to the team is big donkey Dave Angeletti. And also Jack Heffron played a few games, number 88. So Angeletti and Heffron will line up on either side of this line as Robarge goes to let loose the pull. Adnan Raslan is with him, and this is a much bigger lineup. Despite the fact that the air traffic controller is not with the team anymore, he is in Madison. Siccioni and Angeletti and Heffron make this a tall lineup. Now the disc is in the middle of the field. Manwaring has it. He feeds the disc up to Watson, who bobbles it, and it was just a little shuffle pass at midfield. Looks like we've got a call from Brian Heim, and it looks like it'll be a strip or a foul. So already just about 25 yards outside of the end zone. The disc is in the hands of 33, Noah Fisher. Fisher surveying the field. He's flanked on one side by Besser, but he throws up a little lefty forehand. Now, number 30, Ryan Mario, captain, has it. He sends it back to 17. Now again in the hands of number 33, Noah Fisher. Fisher shuffles it back to Fauerback. Fauerback looks downfield, sends up an inside out, and in front of a laying out, I believe it's Raslan, the disc is caught. It's a pass from Fauerback, an inside out forehand just in the front of the end zone on that backhand side. Capiamba looks like he pulled that one in, actually, and that was the one that came from Fauerback. So some aggressive defense by the Thunderbirds, and what looked like it might have been a block off a little bit of a give and go that the Mechanix were working. The Mechanix are always a scrappy team. They lost their opener to Indianapolis. Indianapolis will be here in a few weeks. We'll see them on May 5th, and they're always a tough opponent, and an opponent that feels like it's perennially disrespected. Already given Evan Lepperler a hard time this season for not talking more about them in his preview column for the season. Disc is in the middle of the field, and then it's shot to this way, forehand side by Shepard. Shepard slings one up to Fedorenko on the in-cut. He bobbles it and manages to keep 1 foot in bounds. He might have been straddling it, and then he tried to give it away by throwing a dump pass to John Mast that was right at his shoe tops. Max Shepard, a little shake and bake cutting, but instead a blade is thrown across the field, and it finds its way downfield to Mark Fedorenko. Fedorenko caught the pass off of that blade, and I think it might have been Jimmy Toll who was the recipient of it. Max Shepard had it, and let me back that up a little bit. I think it was probably in the hands of Fedorenko, and he threw it to John Mast. John Mast picked the thing off his shoe tops, and then he missed the opportunity to do a strike cut to Max Shepard. So instead, he looked downfield and threw a sharp blade into this wind, which found its way into the hands of, I believe, Jimmy Toll, and then he threw the goal there. So a little bit of a risky play there with a high stall, but it worked out well for the Thunderbirds. And here they are with a 4-2 lead, 8:44 left in the first quarter, up by 2. Looking out at the Thunderbirds' defensive alignment, Trucks Trimble, Modiata's on the field. And here comes the pull. Bus sends it deep. Racing down to cover it is Pat McMullen. Disc is centered to Fauerbach, now in the hands of Watson. Watson has the disc in the middle of the field, looks to shuffle it back to Nolan Howard, which he does. He hits an in-cut, and now the disc is past midfield. Hallberg gets it, and he shuffles it away from us to Fauerbach, and Fauerbach has a closely covered receiver in the far side of this field here, over on the backhand side. And Taliaferro catches that one from Hallberg, who managed to sneak it past a diving Thunderbirds defender. And I'm not sure who that defender was, but it was a nice bid. And still, with 8:24 left, this game is still has a goal separating the Thunderbirds from the Mechanix. Beautiful night up here on the bluff. This is a new home for the Thunderbirds this year. Their usual digs down at Couple Stadium on the south side, which belongs to the Pittsburgh public school system, are being refurbished. And as a consequence, we're up here at Duquesne, but it's a beautiful view of the eastern part of the city and the northern part of the city up here in these hills. And we could just hope for a little bit better weather. I think the Mechanix were hoping for a little bit better pull than the one that they just got, which settles down on the Thunderbird sideline. That's the forehand side for a righty. Shepard picks it up, and he manages to throw an inside out. Hold on, we've got a call from referee Heim, and it looks like it is a travel. He had found Owen Watt with a sneaky little inside out there, but he's going to have to walk it back 10 yards, and so he's now back at the 17-yard line, and Jimmy Tolles downfield. Max Shepard has Watt going deep. Fedorenko is deep. Number of people underneath it. Ethan Beardsley was there, the Birdman, who is playing in. He keeps his consecutive attendance streak going. Birdman has never missed a game. But he couldn't come down with that one. And now Johnson has the disc on the forehand sideline and gets up to Klena. Klena covered closely by Watt, looking for a dump, and that one is really well defended by the Thunderbirds, and so he's forced to throw up a high one, which is intercepted by Fedorenko, and now the Thunderbirds have the disc in their half of the field, and the disc is centered to Toll. Toll looking to Max Shepard on perhaps a break cut, but he doesn't do that. Instead, he sends it back to Van Dusen. Van Dusen never hesitates to unleash a huck, and it's a handler going deep. John Mass catches it on the 2, and now he's got Mark Fedorenko. The defender picks him up. Fedorenko's shaking and baking. Instead, he sends it out to Watt with an easy little backhand that Watt runs underneath, and the Thunderbirds go up 5-3, the 7-minute mark. And we can look forward to a lot of that airmail game from Sam Van Dusen. But one of the things that I'm sure new coach Pat Hammond and, of course, assistant coach mainstay Dave Lionetti liked to see was that Jonathan Mast, who has previously really been anchored to the backfield, he picked up the disc. He moved it back to Shepard and then immediately went downfield. And so he was open for Sam Van Dusen, who is he inherits the title of the lefty laser this year from Patrick Earls, who is going to concentrate on club. And so now the Thunderbirds are ready to pull it up with their defensive team on the field. Jordan Robar sends up a pull into the wind. Not a strong one. Comes down about 15 yards outside. Besser picks it up, sends it into the middle of the field. And that where it is right now. Now it's moved over to the far side. Now a forehand sends it back into the middle of the field where it rests in the hands of Noah Fisher. Fisher sends out a big, almost blading backhand, which now finds its way into the hands of Howard again. Howard surveys the field from about 25 yards outside of the end zone. It's on the far sideline. Besser waits for a swing in the middle of the field. And the Thunderbirds are playing a loose sort of zone. They've got a kind of line of defenders across the field in front of the thrower. Trucks Trimble is deep. Minding the middle is Robarge. Heffron closest to us. And not a lot of downfield options. It's a matter of, can Detroit be patient with this zone? Besser, a very experienced handler, moving Howard a little bit upfield. And now a little bit of handler motion, so making the Thunderbirds' wall of defenders commit to trying to stop those handler cuts to roll with them. But they haven't gained any yards. They're throwing a lot of passes in the cold and the wind. And here comes Watson in, and then a little bit of impatience on the part of Howard, but it pays off for him. He throws one to Hellberg on the goal line now. It was a big forehand bender, and the disc is corralled by Howard in the end zone for a goal. Actually, that's dancing a jig down there, I think, is Ryan Mario. Ryan Mario, the captain and the longtime Mechanix. So an interesting defense for the Thunderbirds. They came out once the disc got to midfield. They came out in a loose zone, a sort of clammy kind of zone. And once the Mechanix got a little handler movement going, they were able to break the disc out, but only with a risky throw. So I think that probably Pat Hammonds right now and Dave Lionetti huddling with the D team and probably saying, hey, listen, it's not that bad. You know, and I saw Pat Hammonds just make a big kind of bender backhand motion to the D team. And I think what he was saying was, listen, if that's the throw they're going to beat us with, if they're going to go over the top in these conditions and, throw to a covered defender, well then, let them do it. They're not going to do it every time. Jonathan Mass now has the disc. It was brought up to him, and Watt with the disc now, midfield, maybe about 10 yards from the midfield stripe. Fedorenko makes an in-cut. He's on the home sideline with his forehand. He breaks into the middle of the field. Jonathan Mass has it, and he sends it all the way across the field to Van Dusen. Van Dusen has Max Shepard deep. He is covered deep by number 25 by Ryan Jurgen, and this one finds Jimmy Toll on the far sideline. Backhand laced up to him. Max Shepard now has it, and he sends a swing pass in the middle of the field to Van Dusen. Thunderbirds not exactly on the doorstep, about 25 yards out. Beardsley with a big in-cut. He has it now, looking to lay it off, which he likes to do. Shepard open in the middle of the field, and he shoots an inside out to Jimmy Toll, who broke away from the defender to the break side, and Max Shepard laces a perfect 30-yard inside out to Toll, who just has to take a little skip into the air. He pulls it down. Jimmy Toll, one of the few Thunderbirds out here today, not wearing long sleeves, so much respect to Jimmy. And Coach Lionetti said that Jimmy Toll has been an impressive player in practice, so they're excited to have Jimmy Toll playing a bigger role on the team. Speaking of playing bigger roles on the team, AT Alex Thomas is out on the field right now with the D team, along with Heffron, Buss, Trimble. Mo is out there, Mo Jada, and in some ways the opposite of Jimmy Toll is Pat McMullen. He is in a balaclava and leggings, and he sprints down the field. And this one goes almost all the way to the goal line, this pull, and it's still over on the backhand sideline. Now it's out at the 10, and Besser has it. He's being marked loosely by Mo. And again, the Thunderbirds happy to let them throw laterally here, which they do. Mo races in on the mark on Besser now. He's flanked by Watson on his right. And then he sends it backwards to Howard, who laces it up to Mario. They haven't gained much yards, but now Mario airs out a forehand. Underneath it is Trucks Trimble, and it looks like Hallberg, and a perfect pass to Hallberg. Trimble tried to get position, but Hallberg never yielded it, and really all he had to do was slow down and walk to it. And Detroit pulls back within one at 6-5, 4:18 left to go in this quarter. So some very, very different looks on this roster, but so far the Thunderbirds exercising good judgment out on the field and a patient offense, striking when it has the opportunity. And on defense, some creative looks and a lot of speed going down the field. And we see a lot of talk on the Thunderbird sideline as these guys compare notes. And as Pat Hammond said to me, rookie coach replacing Dave Hogan, which is not an easy thing to do. Wherever you are, Hogan, we hope things are going well. But Pat said tonight's going to be a really interesting night to get to know who we are. Thunderbirds fielding the pull. John Mass sends one up to Max Shepard, midfield, about 15 yards up, and he sends a nice little forehand huck up to Ethan Beardsley, who tracks it down 5 yards out from the goal line. He had Watt cutting to the corner, but as is his wont, he doesn't like to throw it into the end zone. He does. It is batted down by a defender, but Jimmy Toll tracks down the rebound. And there was a little traffic behind Ethan Beardsley. When Ethan turns around, he had an initial in-cut by Watt into the end zone, a strike cut. And, he pulled it back because he doesn't really think of himself as is a thrower, and he likes to throw a dump. But then Shepard and Fedorenko both arrive simultaneously behind him. And, you know, when Ethan looks back there, he only wants to see one dump. He saw two. So instead he had to turn around, throw it to Toll. And I didn't see the Mechanix player who got a hand on it, but somebody did. But it was macked pretty as you please to Jimmy Toll, who simply ran to it and put the clap on it. And before you know it, the Thunderbirds scoring very quickly, less than 10 seconds, 7-5, with 4 minutes left in this half, or just a little bit under. And, of course, we got used to it last year when Max Shepard has the disc in his hands, whether he gets it from making an in-cut and, you know, finds himself in that power position, or from the handler position, where I think he's going to be more often. He's going to air it out. Now, Watson's going deep, and looks like Heffron's back there with him. Heffron playing deep in this zone. Robarge as well. And then also back in the zone as a ling is Anthony Kahn. In the front of the zone, forming a sort of wall, we have Siccione. And number 83 on the Thunderbirds. And forgive me, as I said, I get used to this, Steve May. The disc just keeps getting moved back and forth among these handlers as they look downfield, and there really isn't anything. Mario sneaking out into space this way, and then dropping back to cover him is Robarge. And the backfield, they're just sending two back there. Now, looks like Besser's kind of sneaking up, but looks like Akon sees him. They finally find some room in the middle, and they send one up. Hallberg's got it now. And again, that Thunderbird kind of four across defense in the front, trying to shut down anything easy. A little swing sent up, which is corralled by Howard. He has the disc. Looking downfield. Sends it into the middle of the field, where it is picked up by Fauerbach. Fauerbach sends one to an in-cutting Mario. Mario turns around, dumps it. And again, that zone holds. In the front, Siccione and Raslan just turning around, picking up cutters. On the far side of the field, you have Angeletti, the donkey, and now a little play and catch over there between Besser and Fauerbach, just trying to pick up a couple of yards. And it's almost like an arc around them. You know, and this wall just moves with the disc and simply says, throw it to each other all you want. But if you're going to get it through us, you're going to have to take a dangerous pass. And you can see Raslan just with his, when the disc starts to settle down in the middle of the field, Raslan just turns around to look for somebody. May picking up the cutter as he weaves in and out. And they're not, got to look deep. Besser pulls it back. Good patience so far by these Mechanix. Fauerbach sends it over. Now it's in the hands of Howard in the middle of the field, and the wall adjusts. Meanwhile, in the back, you've got Heffron playing deep there, and anytime there's a deep thrust by these Mechanix, then he parries it. Now that the threat is coming from Watson on the far right sideline, Besser could try to throw him a blade, but instead he pulls it back. And now it goes over to the far sideline again. Fauerbach sends one, tries to find Hallberg, and there is a layout block, and we're going to get the number of the truck that got that. Siccione, then he sends a dump backwards to Robarge, who just drops it. And now the zone is falling apart. Detroit is on the move. They pick it up 20 yards out. Besser throws a high release, and it goes over the head of a leaping Robarge, and in front, I'm sorry, that was a leaping Siccione and in front of Robarge. And you can see Robarge just put his head down as that point lasted a good 3 minutes. And it took us all the way down to the 1 minute mark. The Thunderbirds did exactly what they wanted to do. Fauerbach got a little impatient, and it was a really beautiful stab of a block by the Thunderbirds, and it was Siccione who came up with it, turns around to throw that easy dump back to Robarge, and Robarge gets a little bit of a pat of encouragement from Pat Hammonds, a pat. And you know, I think that what Hammonds is saying to them right now is, guys, it's exactly what we wanted to do with that zone. And the Thunderbirds have been looking for seasons now. There's 3 seasons that they've been trying to come up with a zone defense they can play that will work. And this one shows promise, but it was execution after the turnover. And it's hard to switch gears sometimes. Meanwhile, the pull goes up, goes out of bounds, and they're probably going to take that disc out of circulation because it hit these concrete steps. And if they're smart, they're going to take that one out. Not all of us have the luxury of grabbing a new disc every time we happen to scrape concrete, but here in the AUDL, you do. Disc is at midfield, or a little bit short of it. Minute left to go. 7-6, favor of the Thunderbirds. Mast finds Toll on an in-cut. Toll throws a backhand to Fedorenko. Fedorenko about 25 yards out. Shepard working downfield, cuts away. Ethan Beardsley behind Shepard. This one's up in the air. Beardsley mistimes his jump, and Toll maybe had a chance as this backhand from Max Shepard floated. It was from Fedorenko, floated towards the goalpost, the goalpost stanchion. He had a chance to maybe pick it up, but he didn't. 30 seconds remaining in the quarter. A double team comes out against the Mechanix handler, and it gets sent out to this sideline, and now it's dumped back. First time we've seen the Mechanix D team on offense in the hands of number 2. That's Josh Leiter. Now it's shuffled up to the Flying Dutchman, De Jong. De Jong puts it up. He's got a receiver underneath. Max Shepard is there too. Can Max outjump everybody? He does outjump the defender, but Leiter comes floating in from behind, and the Thunderbirds give up a break at the end of the quarter, and with nothing left on the clock. The end of the first quarter, it is 7-7. Thunderbirds and Mechanix. So definitely not the result the Thunderbirds wanted from the first quarter. But mostly you can chalk it up to execution errors. There were some problems there where the Thunderbirds got a turnover and then turned it right back over on their doorstep, and a couple of passes that floated. But, you know, some of what they tried is new and some of it worked. I'd like to thank those of you who are listening in. We'll just call you out by name here. David Martin, thank you. Welcome. Dane O'Brien, my old friend. Glad you've got an ear to the phone tonight. Andrew James, glad to have you too. Kim, hope to see you at pickup soon. Chris Martin, guy I hate to cover and love to throw to. How are you, Chris? And 7-7 right now. Whitney says, post the score. Sorry, Whitney, got a little caught up. And Ryan Orland says, hey, Madison got Anson. Yeah, he moved out to the Midwest and played with us, Ryan, for one more year. But that travel got to be too much, and now he's got himself a chance to play at Madison. So, you know, that's not the only loss the Thunderbirds suffered in their roster. Another Thunderbird mainstay who you won't be seeing or hearing, as the case may be this season, is Tad Whistle. Talked to Tad about it, and, you know, he just feels like he's got a lot of mileage on that body of his, and anybody who's played with Tad knows that he lays it out all the time. He finds covering this full field on the defensive lineup, this 53-yard field, really difficult to do. And you know that he doesn't just lay out in pro games or club games. Tad lays out all the time. He lays out in pickup. He lays out when he's playing catch. And so, you know, he's a big, strong guy, but he told me, listen, the body just can't handle playing every opportunity I have now. I've got to pick my spots. So he's going to play with temper. And we're going to miss him here. Not only did he bring a lot to the field in terms of his, you know, his all-out effort and his magnificent array of throws, but he also brought a lot of character to the team. I mean, I don't know of any other AUDL bobblehead. But I'm hoping that we'll hear and see Tad up in the booth. He's always welcome to join me as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, Tad Whistle, if you're listening, sorry not to see you out here in your 71 jersey, but I'm sure that the fans would love to hear you. So, gotta love Jimmy Toll's performance. Caught a lot of the Thunderbirds' goals. Was making his presence felt all over the field. Siccione, Heffron playing very well in that zone. A lot of aggression in the defense that we're seeing from Anthony Kahn and Adnan Reslan. So lots to like here. Owen Watt getting open for the Thunderbirds. Max Shepard showing off some of those throws that we've come to really appreciate. And, you know, a lot of good things to look forward to. But right now, the score is tied, 7-7. And, you know, the Mechanix, we always know they're good for a game. They never come in and lay down. And I'm sure they didn't do that against Indy, and they're not going to do it against us. And that's part of what makes them worth coming to see. They're a hard-playing team, not a lot of stars on the team. And now they get ready to receive the second half pull. And you can see Besser holding up his hand to block out the sun. He catches this one in the end zone, going into the wind. Now Howard has it. He's flanked by Besser on one side and Fauerback on the other. And now it's Fauerback who has it on the backhand sideline. They're going west towards downtown. Watson has it on an in-cut. Now it's in the middle of the field again with Howard. He looks downfield and he laces an inside out to an in-cutting number 8. Let me get the number of that truck. That's Talaferro. And now a huck goes up. Underneath it is Watson and Heffron. Heffron jumps up and gets up high enough, but he is out of position trying to come from behind the play. And so Detroit seizes the lead. Took about 30 seconds, and they're up 8-7 for their first lead in the game. A disappointing start. Thunderbirds undoubtedly wanted the break. There will be more opportunities for that. John D. Meach is coming off the field. Mojada and AT, Alex Thomas. Those are two guys whose names you'll hear a lot of just because they've got such tremendous speed and are playmakers. Both of them are guys who have played in the mixed game, playing for Alloy, Pittsburgh's mixed A team, Crucible, the B team, I-79, the C team. So a lot of opportunities to play Club Ultimate here in Pittsburgh. Pull goes up. Coming down, and we see underneath it Van Dusen lets it hit the ground rather than try to catch it from that sun. Set upon immediately by Josh Leiter is John Mass, so he swings it back out to Sam Van Dusen, and Nolan Howard finds him. I've probably been miscalling all game. I want to apologize to Noah Fisher. Noah Fisher's folks, if they're listening, when I've said Nolan Howard, I've meant Noah Fisher, and I hope you can forgive me. Nolan Howard is number 5. Underneath this now is Ethan Beardsley, who tracks an errant swing throw. I'm sorry, that is T.J. Watt. No, T.J. Watt is a football player. We don't have him. We love his vertical. It's Owen Watt. Max Shepard has it now, and he has Jonathan Mass cutting in front of him. Mass says, "Why won't you throw it to me, Max? I was open on that strike cut. Klena was behind him." Max instead decides to throw an inside out across the field, and he turfs it. So that's a conversation that Jonathan might want to have with him. And now Klena immediately throws up a blade, which is pulled in down near the Thunderbirds' goal line by the Flying Dutchman, the Yak, and he sends one up right away to Capiamba. Alex Capiamba, also known as Bubbles, he grounds checks it. It's on the goal line, and now it's thrown. And that goes from, I believe, number 1 to number 0. Josh Leiter, maybe to Xavier Klena. And suddenly, with a break on an errant throw that is tracked down by Beardsley and then sent to Max Shepard, and Shepard turns it over on what might have been a bad choice. Thunderbirds find themselves down by 2. And when Pat Hammonds, Peggy and Joe's boy, and we always love to say hello to our friends from the eastern part of the state, Peggy and Joe Hammonds, Pat's folks who love to watch him as a player. Number 41, now I'm sure enjoying listening to his first game as a coach. So glad to speak to you both, Peggy and Joe. I hope you're out there listening. But Pat said they're going to find out who they are. Well, what happens when you go down 2 goals with 10:17 left, 9-7? That's certainly a way to find out who you are. Hey, we've got a dignitary on the line here. It's lots of fun. You can't do this with regular radio. But Aaron Watson, number 59. He is listening. His business partner is out here. Hannah, she's taking photographs tonight. Aaron, we want to say hi to you. We're glad that you're on the line. And we hope that you enjoy this audio broadcast of the game and that things are going well for you. Love to see you in a Thunderbirds uniform, but love to see your name here as a fan too. Bus has a backhand that he airs out downfield. Mo Yada chasing after it. Yada! Oh, my goodness. There was a leaping attempt at a D, a block by the Flying Dutchman Diak, but it was macked, and Mo tracked it. He managed to get a hand on it. He had one more shot at a third deflection, but, you know, unless you're the greatest Flutterguts player in the world, you're not going to pick that one up. Mo dives, and now it's on the Mechanix sideline. They have a chance to go up by 3. Trucks Trimble on the mark, and the disc now in the hands of Josh Leiter. Josh Leiter throws an inside out. And now the disc goes up deep. Running underneath it looks like Jimmy Toll. He pulls down the block, and Mojada sends it up to Bus. Bus has McMillan working downfield. Pat catches it. He's on the far sideline, backhand sideline, sends it into the middle, and it looks like Sam Van Dusen has it and sends out a beautiful lefty backhand floating to Mo in the end zone. Do we want Mo of that? Yes, we do. Mojada opens his career as a Thunderbird scorer, I believe, with a very nice throw from Sam Van Dusen. A left-handed backhand that floated just beautifully. And we've got to give credit, though, to Jimmy Toll, who managed to get that disc back. There was the Thunderbirds needed a break, and now they're down 8-9. But that's a heck of a lot better than 10-7. About 9 minutes left in this half. So Thunderbirds' defensive team does what it's supposed to do. And it's going to have to perform really well this season because this is a division that is stocked with terrific teams. And that includes the Chicago Wildfire. Last year, they won 3 games. This year, they've retooled their lineup, and chief among those new assets is Kurt Gibson, former Dallas Roughneck, AUDL champion, and superstar. And he is going to be playing in Chicago this year. Ryan Mario, as it is now, sends it back to Besser. Fowler back with him. He's being marked by Robarge. Now Watson has the disc. He's been making a lot of those in cuts. He's marked by Raslan. Oh, my goodness, the disc is sent up to Halberg, who's been sure-handed. May was behind him, and Halberg just drops it. A lot of drops tonight. And so Robarge picks it up. He's very close to our sideline, backhand sideline. And we've got a call. Looks like a timeout has been called by Pat Hammonds. It's not a bad call. There's 8:23 left in the first half. Thunderbirds have a chance to pull even and at least get back to close to being on serve. And so Pat Hammonds taking advantage of the AUDL rule, which allows teams to sub on the turnover, or on the timeout, sends in his offensive team. And who's that offensive team going to be? Well, we've got Owen Watt, of course, Jimmy Toll, who looks like he is going to be taking the role that Mark Fedorenko and Max Shepard have played a lot, and that is the guy who gains a lot of yards in those in-cuts up the middle. Ethan Beardsley has not missed an offensive point, and he's out there again. Sam Van Dusen doing a little double duty. He had played some on defense, and he is, of course, out on offense. And picking up the disc is going to be Jonathan Mast. Thunderbirds are going to come out in a vertical stack. And Max Shepard is going to flank him. At the top of the stack is Van Dusen. Watt behind him. Toll behind him. Looks like Fedorenko is at the back of the stack. Disc is in. Shepard juking. Looks like the whistle hasn't been blown. Hard to hear from in the press box. Referees are conferring. We'll get those names to you in a moment. Jonathan Mastis behind his back. He's about 30 yards from pay dirt here, maybe 35. He's on the Thunderbird sideline. Very physical little cut there. Max Shepard gets a perfect pass up the line, corrals it with his left hand. He's on the 2-yard line, fakes a big hammer across the field. He's double teamed, sends it back to Mast. Mast puts it into the middle to Toll. Toll gathers it in. He's marked by Kapiyamba. And a beautiful layout block steals the disc from the Thunderbirds. Max Shepard puts the mark on, and a forehand hook goes up to Kapiyamba. Underneath that is also Toll. Kapiyamba boxes him out, calls for a foul, but he doesn't get it. Drops off to cover the man, and now it looks like we might get a timeout from the Mechanix. Nope. Oh, in fact, I was right the first time. No, I wasn't right the first time. Yep, looks like, sorry to confuse you folks there, but it looks like there was an offensive foul. The thrower pushed off the marker. Max Shepard on a close mark. So that huck comes back, and it's a good thing, too. Here comes another one. This one is going to be beyond the receiver, but looks like we've got another call. We'll wait to see what it is. Brian Heim was right there on the disc. Our officiating crew tonight is Brian Heim. Trevor Bauer is the back judge. Mike Gorham, also an official. Neil Donovan, and then here in the booth, keeping the clock, is the 5th official, Andrew Miller. Looks like this time the Mechanix did call a timeout, making some substitutions. Coming off the field is Talafero, and it looks like they're going to go with Watson, Besser, Kapiyamba, who has been doing quite a bit of double duty. Fowler back, looks like to me. can bet we're going to see Ryan Mario out there, longtime captain of this team. He's the lone captain. The Thunderbirds have 4 captains this season. David Vatz, the human backwards hat, who couldn't be in uniform tonight. Mark Fedorenko, Ethan Beardsley, and Jonathan Mast. But Detroit goes with just 1. They feel like that's enough. A lot of different philosophies of leadership. Hallberg is downfield. He's a big man, number 61 for these Mechanix, and 6'3", 190 pounds. And they are lined up in side stack with a couple of guys featured in the middle. Thunderbirds in man-to-man defense. We've got 7 minutes and 10 seconds left. The Thunderbirds trail 9-8. Buss is on the mark. And here comes a deep backhand. Watson was the intended receiver, but the Thunderbirds say, no thank you to that one. That one was blocked by Alex Thomas. Hey, T. Now Pat McMullen picks up the disc. He sends one up to an in-cutting AT. AT sends a little forehand to Mo in the middle of the field. He shuffles it to Buss, who is making a cut from behind. Power position. He's in the middle of the field, briefly double-teamed. Now he sends it out to McMullen. He's a squirrely little handler, number 9 for the Thunderbirds. Buss working hard to get open. Instead, Dada fills. Mo Jada bobbles the disc, but it's picked up on the deflection and then sent back to Jada. Thank Demetrius for that. Diesel picks it up. Mo sends it into the middle of the field, and he was looking for McMullen, but Capiamba had it bracketed, and he picked it off. One of the things, and here's an errant huck set up. Looks like Capiamba faked out his own thrower. And now with 6:14 left on a messy point, Diesel picks it up, and that shows you how things have changed for the Thunderbirds. John Demetrius is not usually a guy you expect to see picking up the disc. He is this year. Pat McMullen sends up a floater. Watson's underneath it, so's Trimble. Heffron getting lost underneath it. Trimble gets a hand on it but can't pull it down. Now in the middle of the field and 15 yards outside of Detroit's own end zone, they pick it up, and instead of throwing what looks like it might be a huck, it's just shuffled up to Hallberg, finds Capiamba. Demetrius settles in on the mark. Pulled down by Fisher. Fisher sends a lefty forehand into the middle of the field to Ryan Mario, who catches it in the end zone for a goal. And with 5:34 left, the Thunderbirds give up a break, and they're down by 2. It's 10-8, favor of the Mechanix. The 10-8 is the score. One of the things that I said the Thunderbirds are going to have to accustom themselves to, as some of these young players play their first season in the pros, guys like Mo Jada, is that they don't have complete games yet. And Mo is going to be a big help to the Thunderbirds, I believe, with his legs and his hands, but he doesn't have those throws yet, and you can tell he's uncomfortable with the disc. And now you can see Dave Lionetti, Weasel, a longtime assistant captain for the Thunderbirds the entire span of their existence for 4 years. Weasel giving some instruction to Mo on how to use that body to create space for himself and to be more comfortable when he's got the disc in a critical position like that, because he got a little confused there and ended up feeding a turnover to the Mechanix. Now Van Duzen has it and is, I believe, fouled on the throw, but there is no call. Van Duzen tried to step into a backhand, and now Leiden has it, and you know what? We're going to see the integrity rule invoked here, and thank you for it. Xavier Klena says, yeah, I fouled him. He says to Van Duzen, I fouled him, and he did. He stepped into his throw and fouled him with his left leg. He kind of kicked Van Duzen's leg, and Van Duzen now has the disc 10 yards up, just short of the 50, but he gives it away. Tries to throw an inside-out cross-field to an in-cutting Fedorenko, and he puts it out of bounds instead. So execution errors as guys who played supporting roles to handlers like Max Thorne, Alex Thorne, and Patrick Earls are now being forced to make every throw. And sometimes that's going to, those nerves will show up. It's the first time, and they just have to find their rhythm. Leiter has the disc, sends it into the middle of the field. It's pulled in by Talafera. I'm sorry, I miscalled that one there. I'd like to apologize to Noel Howard's family again. Leiter's got it. Little shake and bake on the cut from Austin Johnson. He pulls it down, and looks like we got a travel called. Yeah, Austin Johnson kind of did a little shake and bake on the cut to get that thing from Leiter, and now he's back at the 25-yard line, briefly double team, marked by Max Shepard. Now Jonathan Mast has Leiter. He sends a break throw out laterally to Klenna, who barely keeps it in bounds, and Van Dusen settles in on the mark. We've got Perticone, now double-teamed, heavily double-teamed. First time we've really seen that from the Thunderbirds. And Howard pulls it down, sends it up. It was an in-cut. Jimmy Toll now trailing behind him. Mark Fedorenko sneaks in, though, on a pass that was intended for either Perticone or Howard, and Fedorenko said, you know what, I'll just step between you guys. Now, Fedorenko going deep, Max Shepard puts it up, it's anybody's disc, and then it goes out of bounds, and it's nobody's disc. And just to make sure, Johnson gives it a whack, smacks it into the stands, and actually they're not really stands, they're more like concrete steps over there, big high steps, and Johnson clomps up them with his cleats, and now calling for a replacement disc. But we've got a Mechanix player down on one knee at the 50-yard line over by their sideline. Hopefully he's not hurt. It's 3 minutes left in the game, and it's still 10-8 favor of Detroit. So the Thunderbirds are going to need to use their offensive team here to turn the disc over and get a break. And Fedorenko, taking advantage of the injury timeout, calls to the sideline for a sub, and Trucks Trimble goes in. Injury timeout. Can't quite see who the injured player is, but I think it's Xavier Klenna. Yep, it's Klenna, and he's getting up slowly, being helped to the bench by Besser and by one of the Detroit staff. And Kapiamba comes in, and so the Mechanix give up a little bit of handling for some cutting. They are in a strange alignment here. They've got one handler flanking. They've got two guys kind of in horizontal stack in front, but none of it matters because of an errant dump pass in the end zone, which is quickly scooped up by Van Dusen, who on a little reverse cut, a little jiggle cut there from Max Shepard, he catches it in the end zone to bring the Thunderbirds within 10-9. So yeah, the Mechanix were in a formation downfield where they had two cutters horizontal in front of the throwers, a side stack, one handler flanked, and it didn't matter because the pass from the handler back to the dump was turfed, and rushing to pick it up right away was Van Dusen. And Shepard, he didn't really have a mark on him, so Shepard had his choice. He faked into the middle of the field and then cut away towards the righty backhand sideline, but Van Dusen, being a lefty, threw him a forehand. And now with 2:49 left, it's 10-9, favor of the Mechanix. And it's been hard for the Thunderbirds to pull in this direction. When they pull in a westerly direction, they barely get it past midfield. Picking it up looks to me like it is number 33. Sends it out to 17. That's Carl Fauerbach. Fauerbach playing catch a little bit with Fisher. Fisher sends one up the sideline, and it finds Mario. Mario sends it back to Fisher. Fisher on the backhand sideline, and the Thunderbirds are in that loose zone again. And a diving bid right in front of Taliaferro. And let's see what the call is. It was contact. It was a foul. And it looks like it might have been Raslan who made that bid, or it might have been Akon. But, it was a little righty backhand laced up the line there around that wall in the zone, right on the sideline, towed in. Taliaferro's got it now, and he's quickly double-teamed. It's sent back now, and Fisher sends it up to Taliaferro. Taliaferro taps it in unnecessarily in the goal line. Now it's back to Fisher. Fisher sends one up in the air. Besser underneath it, not used to making a cut in the direction of the end zone. Besser had an opportunity to pull in a goal and thankfully puts it on the carpet. Minute 32 left. Thunderbirds down by 2. Sam Van Dusen is double-teamed. Looking for a way out of it, he throws a dink hammer to an uncovered Akon. Khan throws it back, and a timeout has been called by Pat Hammonds with 1:19 left. And here comes the O-team. Fedorenko, Mast, Beardsley, Watt. D-team having done its job. It wasn't pretty, but they did it. And they forced a handler like Besser into an unaccustomed role, cutting strike in the end zone, had a high one to handle. It kind of handcuffed him. He bobbled it and put it on the carpet. So the disc will be in the hands of the Thunderbirds. Probably John Mast will pick it up. It's on the far sideline, away from us, towards the north side. That would be the righty forehand sideline for the Thunderbirds as they go in a westerly direction. And we'll see what kind of an alignment they come out in, but this is an opportunity to tie it going into the half. Looks like Van Duzen is walking towards the disc. And looks like we'll have a horizontal stack. Shepard will flank Van Duzen as his immediate dump. Standing at about the middle of the field, even with the disc, is Mast. Downfield, in the middle, we've got Beardsley and Toll. Fedorenko in front of the disc, and on the far side here is Watt. Detroit playing in kind of they're playing in a bit of a zone because they're double teaming the thrower. We've got Kapiamba, and it looks like Mario over there. So can Van Duzen find the open thrower? They've got 1:19 to score, but the first thing they've got to do in these conditions is to get out of this trap. Van Duzen throws up a backhand, crossfield, Toll underneath it. He almost catches it. It hits him in the breadbasket, and he puts it on the carpet. Too much of that tonight by far. And now, with the disc in their hands and able to maybe go up by 2, the Mechanix call timeout to send their offensive team on the field. So that's disappointing. Jimmy Toll had been left alone in the middle of the field as the Detroit defense packed around the thrower and dared Sam Van Duzen to throw up that big left-handed backhand blade. And it wasn't really a blade, though it certainly had a little bit of an edge on it. And it came down and it hit Toll right in that spot, you know, when you kind of crouch down and you just try to wrap yourself around the disc, and somehow the disc squirted through and it ended up on the ground. And so now, about 15 yards from midfield, with an opportunity to use this last minute to take an unexpected 2-goal lead on the Mechanix, on the Thunderbirds, the Mechanix will take over. McMillan is on the field, number 9. Pat McMullen. Trucks Trimble is on the field. Jordan Robarsh. Number 77, Mo Jada, is on the field. We've got Heffern out there too. And Demetrius. And then rounding out the defensive team will be AT. Meanwhile, the offensive team for the Mechanix will feature Fauerbach in the backfield with number 33, Noah Fisher. And then downfield, Watson's been working the sidelines all night. Besser flanked out as the far handler on that far sideline. They've kind of got a loose... oh, here we go. Watson making an in-cut, gets it in. Sends it back to Fisher. Fisher laces a little forehand, lefty forehand over to Fauerbach. Now, tightly covered. Looks like a little contact on the mark. McMullen had Fisher tightly covered, but Fauerbach has the disc, and he sends up a forehand. Trimble's underneath it, but it floats. Oh, my goodness, that had to be the wind. Hallberg catches it, but we've got a call. Maybe a travel on the throw, which is lucky because Trimble absolutely had a beat on that disc. We've got 25 seconds left, 10-9, favor of the Mechanix. And, Fauerbach threw up a huck. Hallberg goes again, but no huck this time. Instead, it's in the hands of Leiter. And sent out into space. Again, a Thunderbird underneath it. Demetrius jumps and gets position on Watson. Now, 12 seconds left. Jada has it. He's got to find a thrower. He decides I'm the thrower. He sends up a forehand. 6 seconds left. Trimble underneath it. Heffern makes a diving bid, but it falls harmlessly to the turf, and as time expires, the disc goes up, but it doesn't matter. And the Thunderbirds will go into this half practically even after a half that has been at times exciting and at times very sloppy. Thunderbirds go in down. The Mechanix up 10-9. Hey, just wanted to say hello to some of the other folks who have tuned in here. Want to say hello to Tad Whistle. He's joined the broadcast. How you doing there, Tad? Good to see you're out there with your earbuds in, listening here. Maybe you're listening on your computer. Wish you were here, buddy. And Amy Neuendorf, who's working the table, one of the owners, working the merch table. Amy, hello. Thank you for listening. So Radio 41.2 The Bird, that's one half in the books. And this new and retooled Thunderbirds lineup comes out, plays scrappy, makes some plays, but has a lot of ironing out to do on offense, as there have just been too many mistakes and too many opportunities squandered. So it's going to be a tough second half, and it's very clear that if the Thunderbirds are going to keep their perfect record against the Detroit Mechanix, they're going to have to find an extra gear. And I really don't think it's a matter of effort. It's more a matter of getting to know each other and playing within themselves and taking account of these elements and maybe catching a break or two. But if you'll stick with us, we'll be back in just a short time, 15 minutes. We hope you'll tune back in, and we will start casting again, and we'll bring you the second half. So thanks very much. We'll take a little break, and we'll be back in just a few. 15 minutes, folks. Join us once more for second half. Thunderbirds 9, Detroit 10. Fedorenko has the disc. He swings it sideways to Jonathan Mass, standing in the middle of his own end zone. He finds Sam Van Duzen, who sends it out with the lefty backhand to Max Shepard. Max looking to strike quickly, but instead sends it to Watt with the short swing pass. Now Van Duzen looking to get open. Instead, it's Mass who comes back and fills in about 20 yards out from his own goal line. He sends about a 15-yarder up to Fedorenko on the righty backhand sideline here at home. Thunderbirds going towards downtown here with the east end at their backs. Filling in here is Van Duzen. Van Duzen looking downfield, and he thinks he's got Watt. Watt's underneath it, jumps up, pulls it in two-handed, and he catches it. Pulls it down in the end zone, and it takes him about 45 seconds, and our Thunderbirds manage to pull back to even. It's 10-10. Scoreboard's a little bit slow to catch up, but it will. And with the clock running, 11 minutes left, the Thunderbirds come out and they even that score. It's 10-10. Wanted to thank all of you out there listening, and want to thank particularly those of you who are joining us from Detroit. Hope you'll forgive me, folks, if I make some mistakes in your lineup. You've got some new faces who I have yet to get to know very well. And, of course, in the warm-ups, which is usually when I can go and identify those jersey numbers and match them up to names, a lot of the guys are out there going through their drills with sweatshirts on and hoodies and extra layers, and so it's hard to get to know them right away. But this half, we hope we'll do better than we did last half, and your Mechanix certainly did a nice job. It's always nice to see them in town, always give us a great game, and they're a spirited team. Fowler back now. Sends the disc into the middle, and Talifero pulls it down. McMullen was about to close in on it, and now he catches up to Besser, but Besser swings it out to Mario. Mario sends a forehand up into the air. Heffron is underneath it, along with Buss, and Buss bats it out of the air. Talifero was looking to catch up to it, but Buss got to it first. So two big defenders for the Thunderbirds, and now the Thunderbirds with a chance to break with about 10:30 left in this half. This one finds McMullen. He had Mo cutting in, but he looked him off, and now it's back to Buss, about midfield. Mo going deep, and he takes Watson with him. And this one is floated out to Trimble, who catches it with two hands. Mario joins him. He is quickly joined by the double team, and he pops a scooper over to the diminutive McMullen, who sends up a very nice forehand that AT was waiting for, and Fauerbach managed to get to it first. It just hung up a little bit too long. Maybe McMullen put a little bit too much touch on that for the very speedy AT, who probably could have caught up to it. Instead, now Fisher has it in his hands. He's joined by a double team, but he manages to sling it up to Besser, who throws a backhand up the line to Talifero and Hallberg underneath it. But Heffron bats it out of the air, and it looks like there might be a call in the end zone. Hallberg certainly thought that it should be, and it looks like it will be his disc. And the call was made, actually, by Heffron, who called it on himself. Integrity rule invoked. Possession will take place in the middle of the field on the goal line. Hallberg will have it, and looks like he'll be marked by Heffron. Vertical stack in front of him. Buss marking the first man in the stack, who looks to be Watson. Trying to see around the pillar here. Looks like they're trying to set up an ISO. Dump back to Besser. Besser corrals it. He throws an A high release over the mark, and it is caught for a goal as Detroit pulls back ahead by 1.
Detroit goal scored by number 19, Austin Johnson.
Johnson pulling that one in, Austin Johnson, and they're up 11-10, are the Mechanix. And so it was a nice defensive bid by Heffron, but, true to the spirit of the game, he agreed with the receiver, Tate Hallberg, and the two big guys out there. Between them, we've got Hallberg at 6'3", and Heffron's a big guy, too. He's 6 feet tall, which is what we call Pittsburgh tall around here. Although with Steve May at 6'5", we might have to retire that expression. But Heffron called it on himself. So, the Thunderbirds are now about to counter with their offensive lineup. And Sam Van Duzen will let this one float out of bounds. And instead, he'll leave it for his partner, Jonathan Mast. Young man who's really come into his own as a Thunderbird. And so John is going to pick it up and bring it to the midfield stripe, the brick mark. It's about 20 yards out of the end zone. And he is flanked by Shepard and Van Duzen. Used to seeing Shepard downfield. Instead now, we see Shepard as one of the handlers. Thunderbirds kind of circling, and Toll ends up getting the disc blocked by Nolan Howard. He dives in front of him. And instead, the disc is picked up now by Perdicone. Perdicone working to get it open. And he finds Leiter. Leiter is being marked by Mass. So an unfortunate turnover for the Thunderbirds. Down by 1 with 8:37 left. Capiamba corrals one that's thrown across the field. It's on the backhand sideline. He is quickly joined by Fedorenko. And a backhand is thrown up the line where it is caught in front of Beardsley. And now a forehand thrown up, and it looks like it will float out of bounds, and it does. The intended receiver looked like it might have been Leiter, but it didn't matter. The thing floated harmlessly out of bounds. Now it's in the hands of Jimmy Toll. Sends it into the middle of the field. Now Van Duzen has it closer to the forehand sideline, and he launches a lefty forehand up. Max Shepard is underneath it. He's got company. Shepard just barely mistimed his jump, and Austin Johnson playing tight defense on him maybe forced him to commit a little sooner than he wanted to, and I can't help but think that the wind and the cold have something to do with so many of these guys just mistiming their jumps, jumping just a tiny bit early. This one is floated up into the middle of the field. Fedorenko gets a hand on it, and then diving to try to pick it up was Perdicone, but he couldn't quite corral it. So the Thunderbirds have the disc. They're about 30 yards outside of the goal line, and then beating a double team, Van Duzen swings it out to Shepard, who sends it across the field to a wide-open Jimmy Toll, and it's complete for a goal. 7:25 left in this third quarter, and the Thunderbirds pull even. So Max Shepard showing you what he can do if you leave him open. What happened was that Johnson came over and put the double team on Jonathan Mast, and that let Max Shepard slip up the line a little bit on the Thunderbird sideline, where he received the pass back from Mast, and then he was unmarked, and Jimmy Toll snuck to the forehand sideline for him, the forehand side of the end zone, and of course Max Shepard unleashed that forehand, and despite the wind which was blowing against him, no problem. A goal for Max Shepard to Jimmy Toll, and Jimmy Toll, one of undoubtedly our statistical leaders. There were 4 guys tied with 2 goals last half, and Van Duzen led with assists with 3. Fedorenko got 2 blocks, and now the disc is put in play. It's Thunderbirds in that zone that they've been playing. Rastland and Siccioni in the middle, and looks like they've got Angeletti on one wing in this cup, and then playing deep, they've got Trucks Trimble. Looks like it's probably Anthony Kahn playing one wing in this zone, and then Robarge back in the other. And in that front wall, which they just found a hole in the wall to Hallberg, and now shuffles it back over to Besser, and he is directing traffic. So these guys weave in and out, and this gets moved back and forth across the field from Fisher to Fauerbach to Besser, and that wall just kind of trying to make those downfield cuts difficult. Hallberg is working beside the wall. Channing Watson over on this side now looking to come in, and Anthony Kahn goes with him, nothing behind him. Trucks Trimble follows Mario over to the sideline, and now Hallberg has it in the middle. He flips a patient little forehand out to Besser, who's standing in the center of the field. He's about halfway between his goal line and the midfield stripe, and he gets it back from Fisher. The Thunderbirds playing this patient defense, and now May over there on the far sideline, kind of standing in front of Hallberg, and now looks like a little bit of a give and go going on between the handlers. They've decided, well, we're going to have a little action behind the disc if we're going to move it downfield. They've thrown a lot of passes, and they've only moved it about 20 yards. They're getting close to midfield, being very patient. Fowler back over to Fisher, working downfield. Watson now kind of freelancing rather than hugging the sideline in and out. Now he's got it, shuffles it to Besser. They play catch a little bit, and then he throws a timely pass backwards. Finds its way into the hands of Fisher. Fisher to Fowler back, middle of the field. They're 10 yards past midfield. Siccione and Raslan kind of shutting down what's in the middle. Channing finds a hole. Channing Watson. And then he patiently dumps it back, and 5 more yards gained by Detroit as they patiently march this down the field. Thunderbird saying, in this cold and wind, can you make all of these passes without a mistake? Hallberg says, yes, I can, and taking a step into it is Fowler back. Now they've got this disc about 15 yards outside the goal line. Dumps it back to the 20. Fisher captaining this effort, sends it out to the experienced Besser. He's quickly joined over there by May and Raslan. Siccione guarding the middle, looking to prevent a big swing is Robarge, and he doesn't manage to get a block there. Manages to force it wide. Fowlerback has it, looking to send it up the middle, but a kind of lunge by Siccione forces him to send it back to Fisher. Fisher 20 yards outside, kind of at the 30-yard mark there, that big painted number. Fowlerback sends it into the middle. It's back at the 25. I'm saying 25 in ultimate terms, 35 if you're looking at the football field. Still there, but now on that backhand sideline. More passes, little give and go. Fisher has the disc in the middle, slings it out to Fowlerback, and the wall adjusts with him. Running behind that wall, trying to find a hole is Tate Hallberg. Instead, he kind of comes back into a wing handler position. And now, again, everybody being very patient on Detroit. Nobody testing Scott Trucks Trimble back there. Nobody testing the guys in the backfield. Instead, just working it up, either using the handlers or finding Hallberg and Watson for little shots to the sideline and then playing catch with them. Now a breakout throw to Hallberg, and that time Besser decided to throw a leading forehand in the end zone on the far side to Hallberg, and he couldn't catch up with it. Laid out for it, dropped it. Now one sent up in the middle, a big swing to Trimble. Looked a little risky. Trimble catches it in the middle, and with this defense obviously tired, Coach Pat Hammonds calls a timeout. But that zone defense did exactly what zone defenses are supposed to do. It challenged the offense to be patient and to not try to get greedy with those last 10 yards. But those of you who are ultimate players know just how difficult that is. And it used a lot of time. There's just 3:23 left in this quarter. And it's 11-11. And so they worked patiently. The handlers were able to gain 5 yards almost at will, but then they would lose 5 yards and step backwards a little bit, and then forwards and then backwards. And ultimately, it was Besser, the experienced Besser. We see Mojada having a lot of fun giving the old pointing up to the sky and trying to pump up this crowd here. Not a big crowd, but a loyal and frigid crowd. We hope you'll come out and join them. Honestly, it is really a beautiful venue. You can find parking here on the campus. It's not free, but if you want to park at the Mon Wharf and do what I did and walk up about 150 steps, you get a little workout before the game, earn that hot dog, which I had at halftime from the concession stand here. But ultimately, it was Besser who decided that he was going to take a chance and try to find Hallberg there, and he couldn't corral it, couldn't pull it in, laid out for it, bounced off his left hand, and now masked, facing a vertical stack consisting of Max Shepard, Ethan Beardsley behind him, and Watt behind him, Jimmy Tull, and then anchoring the back of the stack is Fedorenko. He has, it looks to me like Van Duzen behind him. Van Duzen is uncovered. Shepard does a little shake and bake cut, and a beautiful backhand is sent out to him, which he tracks down. He's on the Thunderbird sideline. He unleashes a backhand to Watt going deep. He's got company in the form of Taliaferro. He's got position. He leaps up and is unable to pull it in. Taliaferro might have gotten a hand on it, but I think that Watt had it in his hand. And so instead, it's going to be Detroit, and they're going to have to make a decision about whether or not they're going to call a timeout, because there is nobody there to pick up the disc. And referee Bauer was just, and they do indeed call a timeout because Bauer was counting and there was nobody there. So the Thunderbirds O team on the field, but it looks like the D team is getting ready to go back out. They, of course, can sub on this timeout. It's the Detroit timeout. But that was disappointing. The throw just hung a little bit for Shepard. I think that Watt was in a position to catch it. If he were in midseason form, I think he probably would have pulled that down. As it was, unable to come up with it. Wanted to give a shout out to a guy who's working with the Thunderbirds in a new capacity this year, and that is their physical, their athletic trainer. He's, and I shouldn't call him an athletic trainer in that he is not a medical person, but he is he's a strength and conditioning coach, and it's Donald Robinson, our friend, Pittsburgh Ultimate player, former track star at Slippery Rock. Global Human Performance is his company, and he's been working with the Thunderbirds, but he's also been working with me as I prepare for my own Ultimate season, and I'll tell you a little bit about that coming up. But I can tell you that, I think that as the season wears along and they work more with Donald, a guy like Owen Watt is going to jump up and pull one like that down, not have so much trouble getting the air underneath him, but it's a tough night for running and jumping, that's for sure. Pat McMullen on the mark here as the Thunderbirds bring out their D team, and he is, as I said, clad in that balaclava. Mojada out on the field, John Buss, Trucks Trimble, John Diamichis, the Diesel, Heffron at the back. Pass goes out to Channing Watson. Watson shuffles it over to Fauerbach. He's on our sideline. Fisher's in the mix too, so's Besser. And Watson just shredding in there. And we've seen Watson and Hallberg gaining the yards and the handlers playing catch. And Fisher has an opportunity to launch one deep. He's got a receiver underneath it. And leaping up to make the block is Diesel. Diesel had the height advantage there. He doesn't always, but he does on Channing Watson. Now the disc is in Buss's hands. He swings it out to Diamichis, and Mojada is open deep. Alex Thomas is with him. It's a matter of whether or not this throw can come down in bounds, and it did not. Diesel had an opportunity to put it deep, but it's not an easy night to make that kind of a throw, and that's not really Diesel's job. He tried to send it about 60 yards. He had two guys who were definitely going to track down whatever it was that he could throw, but instead we have the referee climbing over those tall steps over there to retrieve the disc, and he has to be the one to track it down. And so with 1:54 left in this quarter, it's still 11-11 as Detroit takes over. Besser winds up to throw a backhand hook, but doesn't, and instead sends it back to Fisher. Fisher laces a lefty forehand to an in-cutting Talafero. Talafero is double-teamed, sends it back to Besser. Besser, looking, puts it into the middle of the field about 15 yards up, but then he finds, Fisher finds Mario. Mario sends it over to Watson, and now they're past midfield and over on the far sideline. This one is floated into the middle, where Fauerbach is joined by Jada, and he throws it out to Mario. Mario on our side. He sends a little floater into the field where it's pulled down by an unmarked Hallberg, who's quickly joined by Trucks Trimble. Now Fauerbach has it back. Mojada put on him to mark him, and then patrolling the middle of the field is Hallberg, who sends it back to Fauerbach 10 yards out, puts a little one out in front of a laying out Ryan Mario, who pulls it in with a minute left in the quarter, and the Detroit Mechanix sees a lead again, 12-11. So this half, give you a sense of what the conditions are like out here. This half started at 10-9, and each team has scored just a few times. The Thunderbirds have managed 2 and the Mechanix 3. So, no, I beg your pardon. They've each managed 2. So it's 12-11. Sorry, my mathematical skills lacking a little bit here. Hey, wanted to say hello to good friend Dave Benton. How are you, Dave? And looks like we've got a DiGirolamo out there. George DiGirolamo. So hello to him. And Ryan Orland looking for a score update, 12-11. And hey, we want to say hello to the human backwards hat, David Vatz, who is tuning in. He can't be with us, but he will be out there soon. He is a captain. Speaking of captains, Mark Fedorenko catches it at about midfield, throws a backhand up to a streaking Jimmy Toll. Jimmy Toll catches up to it in the end zone and catches it for the score. He was about to be joined by a hard-running Andy Yu, but Andy Yu could not get there to catch up with that Fedorenko throw, and before you know it, just about 10 seconds, the Thunderbirds find themselves knotted back up 12-12 with an opportunity to maybe get a break and seize the first lead of the quarter. Nice to see those likes flying up our little screen here. Quite amazing. You know, we normally have a big array of cameras and monitors and microphones when we stream these games live video, but here I am standing here with GM Andrew Gardner's phone in my hand, since my iPhone doesn't seem to be up to the task, and it's just me and you and the phone, and I hope that you're enjoying this old-fashioned experience. I know a lot of people prefer to listen to ball games on the radio, and I'd like to hear how a Frisbee game sounds on the radio. I hope it sounds good. One person who's been good all night is Fisher, Noah Fisher, and now he throws it to Talifero, who is double-teamed aggressively, but bailed out with a throw to Evan Parazote. This one is out of bounds. It would have been out of bounds, but Hallberg catches up with it. 30 seconds remaining in the quarter. Disc is at midfield in the hands of Talifero. He laces one out to Channing Watson, and it's up high, and he's got to catch that one. He was going head-to-head with a much bigger man, Dave Angeletti, the donkey. Donkey, 6'3", towers over Channing, and Watson was unable to come up with it. So a block for the Thunderbirds. And Angeletti has it. He sends it to a little kind of dad backhand to Fedorenko. Fedorenko's got 8 seconds left. He throws one up deep. Trimble underneath it. AT. This one's going to carry to the end zone. And it is blocked by, looks to me like it was Noah Fisher, who got underneath it, leapt up, and made the block. There were some big guys back there. Trucks Trimble was back there. And AT, I think, was trying to get into that action over there. But as it turns out, it was the somewhat diminutive at 5'10", it's my height, Noah Fisher, who came up with the block. So, with 3 quarters in the books, the scoreboard has barely advanced, but the Thunderbirds did pick up a critical score. And it is now 12-12 as we count down towards the last quarter on this frigid evening here in Pittsburgh. Just to give you a little score, when we started this game, it was 39 degrees. It's dropped to 38, but the sun has gone and hidden behind the big skyscrapers of downtown Pittsburgh, and it is undoubtedly descending into the Ohio River as we speak. And we see hoods coming up and hands stuffed into pocket and gloves going on. And you hear if you can hear over this broadcast, the indefatigable Bill Holman. Naked Bill Holman, not naked tonight, but wearing his trademark blazer and bandana, entertaining the crowd. The Thunderbirds have a mascot this year. And we see Andrew Gardner pitching in, bringing out the hoops for the between-quarter entertainment. This is definitely an all-hands-on-deck kind of evening. You see the ownership down on the field, Tracy Neuendorf down there. Melanie working on her, she's the new director of public relations, and she is working on her masters. And we've got the little disc, the minis. Try to get it in the Huckett bucket. Any of them falling in? Nothing even in the rings. They're coming from the crowd. And a little help from Mo, who's trying to bop them in there into that bucket. That bucket's still empty. There's a big prize if you can get in there, some cash, and go home with it. But none of these mini discs are finding their targets. We don't even have any landing in the rings. 2 rings in a bucket. And that Huckett bucket, still empty. And it looks like there's not much left in the crowd. Thunderbirds looking on with interest. And pretty soon we should probably see the lights coming up here at Art Rooney Field. Billy counts down the end of this halftime show. And looks like we don't have a winner. Hold on a sec. But Andrew Gardner, number 16, is the winner. He got it the closest to the Huckett bucket, Andrew Gardner determined. So a lot of fun to come out here, and I hope that you will. Don't miss the opportunity. Go to the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds Facebook page or go to pghthunderbirds.com. And pick up a season ticket, why don't you? You really can't find a better entertainment value in the city. But if you can't do that, then I hope that you'll continue to join us. You can find us on Facebook. We'll be doing live audio for the next home game. That'll be next weekend, Saturday at 6, I believe. I'll double check on that just to make sure that I'm correct. And, if after that you want to continue to listen in, we hope you will. We'll be live streaming our games. We'll be working with Steel Toe Productions again. Video House will be helping us to carry these games with even more features and maybe coming to your cable channel, or if you're a cord cutter, over-the-air digital video, digital television. So, so much to see. And we hope that you'll be part of it all season long. I guarantee it's not always going to be 38 degrees out. Happy to hear some reports from out there that the stream is coming through live and loud and clear. I want to say hello to Dakota Diamichis. And that's Diesel's sister. She's listening from Texas. And let's go Birds, she says. And they're ready to go. Pull starts this half, and it's in Fisher's hands. He sends it over to Fauerbach, who, after a little bit of a jittery start, has been very, very strong. Hallberg has been out there logging a lot of points, doing a lot of cutting, and just trying to find the holes in that zone. And they've got everybody packed in there now. Mario running through the zone, trying to pull some of these front wall players out of position. Not gaining a lot of yardage, but still able to play keep away with the zone. Besser corrals one that looked like it might have gotten caught up in there in the wind. Now Mario has it at midfield over on the far sideline, and he shuffles it back to Besser just to make sure. He sends it safely to Fisher, who, again, these handlers are relatively unmolested, but here's a throw that Fauerbach pulls down. That one floated a little bit, and the Thunderbirds defender had an opportunity. That was the donkey. He had an opportunity, Angeletti, to pull that one in. But he didn't manage to catch up to it before Fauerbach ripped it out of the air. Now it's laced up with a little inside out just past midfield to Hallberg. Hallberg sends it over to Watson, who sends it back to Besser. Besser surveys the field, thinks better of it, sends it almost back to midfield, right at the big red and blue D for Duquesne. Now it's in Fauerbach's hands, closer to us here on that righty backhand sideline. If you were to be forced to that sideline, if you were righty, you'd be throwing it backhand. Now it's back in Fisher's hands. Fisher gesturing with the disc, faking and kind of directing traffic. Cicciletti in the front and Raslan, both of them there, kind of trying to clog up that middle. Watson jogging, kind of takes, I think that's May over there with him. And again, not progressing much past midfield. They pick up 10 yards to Fauerbach. Can Fauerbach gain yards out of this? Or is he going to have to send it back, which he does, to the midfield stripe again to Fisher. Meanwhile, time ticking away. 10 minutes left in this game. Besser with it, middle of the field, about at the 45. I should say probably the 30 now. And that, when I say 30, again, I'm talking about an ultimate field. Besser and Watson just playing catch over there. So 30 yards outside the goal line on the forehand sideline, away from us. And that line holding. No big strikes. Hallberg comes in to handle and then drifts back out. And again, they're just trying to, it's Hallberg, Watson, and Mario trying to kind of pull these guys out of place and get lost, have somebody follow him when he's not supposed to, and maybe get a shot up the middle. Meanwhile, in the back, you've got Robarge and Heffron, and it's their job to make sure that nobody gets open for an easy shot. Watson's open deep, and he's got to be a tempting target if you get a little bit closer. But as it is, he's just kind of keeping Robarge and Heffron active over there. Again, it's on the far sideline. Raslan trapping, but no aggressive marks here. They're really letting them play catch as long as they do it laterally. And there's a crowd around there. If they could break out to this side of the field, to the home side of the field. And back around the 35 on this 80-yard field, right near midfield. Now Fauerbach has it on our side of the field. Racing over to contain him is Donkey. Back to Fisher. Another 30 seconds gone. 8:30, 12-12. Thunderbirds and Mechanix. Now Talaferro has it. Little bit of progress here. Slings it out to Besser and Watson playing catch over there. They're 12 yards from the goal line. They're on the far side of the field. Once again, it's in Fisher's hands. And he's deftly faking, very reliable with these throws so far tonight. Fisher has been rock solid as a handler. Fauerbach, too. Now he looks to make a strike cut, but instead he pulls up short. Watson sends it back to him. Watson playing sideline to sideline. Last time they got impatient on the goal line. Will they again? Watson catches it right on the doorstep. He's not in. Caught it with his foot on the line. Fauerbach has it now. Back at the 5. Now sends it back to the 10. Fisher waiting. They might have had a goal over there if he'd been able to move his feet back. Watson just a little bit. Now Besser has it. Stumbles a little bit with the disc. Pulls himself together, and now it's in Mario's hands. Shuffled back to Besser. He's contained on that far sideline, but he is right on the doorstep. 5 yards, now 10 yards out as it goes back to Fisher. Swung back this way to us towards the backhand sideline. Fauerbach directing traffic. Zone holding. Cup forming around the thrower. Everybody marked up in the back. We've got somebody over there, and Besser, Fisher throws a low one to Besser, but he pulls it up. And Hallberg has it. There's a diving attempt to stop this throw, but finally they break through, and I think it might be Channing Watson over there. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. I just got a note that we have to pause just for a moment. But let me tell you that it's 13, 12, 7, 11 left, and we're gonna pause this for a moment, and then we're gonna get back. Big block there by the Thunderbirds. You're rejoining us with 6:29 left. It is 13-13, and I apologize. Bus picking it up right now, and looks like he's marked by Talaferro. Sent up the line to Trucks Trimble. And it looks like Coach is going to see if the defensive team can punch this one in. 13-13, it's a pretty critical point. Pat McMullen sends one out to AT, but it is blocked. AT's begging for a call. I don't know that he's going to get one. Joe Besser says to him, nope, and there's not going to be an integrity rule call here, and I don't really think there needs to be. I think Noah Fisher had the inside track, and he got it. I apologize for being away, but we put Andrew Gardner's cell phone to good use. We need to get the lights turned on here because the last 6 minutes are going to be pretty dark. The sun is definitely setting. Ryan Mario diving to try to pick up a little downfield throw, a little backhand from Fisher, and he hits the ground and the disc comes loose. So McMullen has it, slings a high release over the top to Buss. Buss had an opportunity to hit the Amichis, but didn't like the angle. Besser was in the way. Mojada cutting for him. Now he sends a helixing hammer across the field, going away from the defender, and it hits the Thunderbirds receiver in the hands. I didn't see who that was. I'm thinking it might be Akon. Now Hallberg going deep. No, it was Amichis. All right, Hallberg going Diesel following him, and the disc does in fact go up to Hallberg, who lays out and stabs it with his right hand right on the goal line. A very, very discouraging turn of events for the Thunderbirds, who had the disc on the doorstep with their defensive team after a big block, and instead, Diomedes, with the disc in his hands, the opportunity to score the winning goal, or the go-ahead goal, or maybe just to have the disc on the goal line, drops it, and then his man goes deep. He can't catch up, and Hallberg makes a diving stab at the disc, and the next thing you know, it's 5 minutes left in the game, and Detroit takes the lead 14-13. If this game doesn't go the Thunderbirds' way, they're going to look back at that moment and really regret the fact that we were unable to convert with the D team. I am not sure. It looks to me like the Thunderbirds have a timeout left. And so on that turnover, Coach Hammonds made the decision not to call the timeout and get his O team on the field and leave it to his D team. And in fact, the D team did the job. At least its throwers did, as that disc ended up in the hands of a receiver, but it was not converted. Now, Sam Van Dusen catches up with the disc at midfield, sends it into the middle of the field to Ethan Beardsley, who will look for a safe throw, and he'll find it back to Diomedes. He's on the home sideline. He throws that lefty forehand out in space, and it is pulled in the end zone by Mark Fedorenko, the captain. So Sam Van Dusen pulls it down, and Fedorenko looked like either he's got a pair of, I guess we'd have to say that Fetchko's wearing capri pants tonight. They're leggings, they go down just below the knee, and a minute there I thought he might have hurt himself, as it is, and yeah, it looks like he is. He's grabbing at his knee a little bit. It doesn't look serious, but wouldn't surprise me to see him come over to the trainer's table. Let's give you an update on that score, because it is all knotted up, 14-14, and we got 4:42 left in a very tight game, a game that's turned out to be, if not a work of art, then at the very least, an exciting one. Here we are, flipping you all the bird. See our former intern, Michael Guido, a writer and journalist, is listening. Michael, great to see you. Dave Benton, thanks for the kind words. And we still don't have the lights on here, and it's getting hard to tell one team from the other. And so we are working on getting those lights on. I don't think they'll end up calling the game because of darkness, but if we have to go into overtime, then we've got to get the fella out here who knows where the light switch is. Thunderbirds give the disc with an offsides penalty to the Mechanix, and that's another critical error. Now it's at the 50, and so, this zone, which is a bend but don't break zone that is supposed to kind of lure the offense into making a mistake, turfing a pass, floating a pass, maybe getting a little bit greedy. It works if you got to do the whole field, but they don't have to do the whole field. They only have to do half of it right now. And that disc is now got less than that because Channing Watson makes an in-cut, and now the Thunderbirds look like they have lapsed into a man defense. So they started with the zone, and now they are in a man trying to catch Detroit out of its rhythm. Over there, Angeletti on the mark. Now Besser has the disc. He pops one up to Talifero. Besser throws one into space to a receiver, and he finds Channing Watson in the end zone for the go-ahead goal. It's 15-14 with 4 minutes left. And so the Thunderbirds probably had that zone-to-man call from the beginning of the point, but you can bet they didn't want to execute it the way that they did. They probably wanted to send it at least 20, 30 yards with the pull into this dying wind here. The wind has calmed down considerably as the sun goes down, but they wanted to send it into Mechanix territory and play zone for maybe about, 5-6 passes, get them settled into that rhythm as they become accustomed to playing catch with each other, those handlers, and then settle into a man and maybe steal a block. As it was, the offsides penalty did not allow them to do it. So the offensive team comes out. Nobody's going to surprise you out here with the personnel. Van Dusen, Toll still in those short sleeves. Fedorenko pulling on and off that stocking cap. Watt, Beardsley, Shepard, and Mast. Disc bounces into the hands of Van Dusen, who sends it into the middle to Mast. He laces one up to an in-cutting Fedorenko, something we see a lot. About 15, 20 yards from their goal line. Shepard being tightly covered out there by Josh Leiter. I'm sorry, let me retract that and say it's Perticone who was on that mark. Now on the far side of the field, Watt sends a little Shuffle pass up to Mast. Mast finds an in-cutting Jimmy Toll. They're on the far side of the field. They're 20 yards outside of the goal line. Mast has it now. Over on the football number, and he sends a wide swing perfectly into the hands of Fedorenko. Fedorenko considers an inside out. There's a vertical stack now in front of him, and he and Mast are playing catch. But Mast's defender fell down. Unfortunately, what happened was Van Dusen dragged the defender into the wide-open strike cut there. Now, catching it in front of Kapiamba is Van Dusen. Van Dusen throwing that lefty flake, and he sends a hard, blading forehand, lefty forehand to a sliding Ethan Beardsley, who is safe at the pylon to bring the score even at 15-15 with just 3 minutes remaining in the game. And that was a gutsy throw from Sam Van Dusen, which surprised absolutely nobody. That's Sam Van Dusen's trademark, unafraid to pull out that weapon of a left hand and use it very Pat Earls-like. They remind me a lot of each other, both in their, their temperament and obviously in their game. Both terrific players, both of them effective receivers and throwers. Maybe Earls has a little bit of an advantage in the receiver department. Sam Van Dusen, terrific throws from both sides of his bodies, and both of them have a little bit of a swagger and a little bit of a grin that you like to see. They enjoy playing ultimate, and they enjoy making things happen, and Van Dusen certainly did. And couldn't have found a better target than the big Birdman, who slid on his behind there and got those tail feathers into the turf and put the squeeze on the disc to get the Thunderbirds even. Now, with 3 minutes left, it's tied at 15s. Thunderbirds are in a man-to-man defense against a horizontal stack offense. Coming in, Channing Watson corrals it in front of Trucks Trimble. And a block is made. A block is made by Sam Van Dusen. It was an in-cut. It was about 30 yards outside, and he did not have position on Taliaferro. He throws one out into space. Mo Jota catches it on the goal line. I don't think he's in. Now Mo's going to have to find a handler, and he has one behind him in Pat McMullen. Pat McMullen, 5 yards out, floats one into the end zone. It is caught by Trimble, and the Thunderbirds are ahead. The Thunderbirds, after a long time trailing, stalking the Mechanix on a beautiful block by an offensive player doing double duty. Sam Van Dusen, he didn't have position. He managed to get that arm in there on the layout in front of an incoming Taliaferro, deflecting the disc. Taliaferro looks to the official. He gets no satisfaction. He deserved no satisfaction. All the satisfaction on the part of the Thunderbirds as Sam Van Dusen picks it up, rifles it across the field to Mo Jota, who with a cool head dumps it to Pat McMullen, who streaks over to corral the dump on the backhand sideline and then throws it up to Trimble, and the Thunderbirds lead 16-15, 2:28. Now it's time to hold and to do the job. Max Shepard is out on the field. He's going to play a defensive point, and part of the reason he's out there is to do what he's doing right now, which is sending a pull deep, deep into Detroit territory. Unfortunately, it lands out of bounds. And we all know that no matter how far you throw a brick, that brick is still only a 60-yard throw as it comes out onto the 20 in the middle of the field. And so, with 2:28 left, 16-15, Thunderbirds ahead. And a defensive team. And again, we are playing here. It is dark. I mean, we are in the gloaming right now. And so, those of you listening on the radio, the Bird, 42.1, those of you listening on our audio broadcast, you can see the field. We can see the field only a little bit better than you. We've got a man streaking deep. AT goes with him. All right, he comes back in. With the disc now is Watson. Boy, has he logged a lot of points. And he sends one back, and it's pulled down by Besser. McMullen on him. They lost some yards on that throw, and it's thrown up into the middle. Shepard bidding on that, but it was just over his head. Shepard on the taller Hallberg. Now he gets away from him. He's going deep. And in the hands of Fisher. Fisher being marked by Robarge. Sends it up in the middle of the field. Another risky throw that Jota almost catches up with. And now, going back down the field is Perticone. Fisher in the middle of the field has it like he so often has. Thunderbirds playing very tight man defense now. Van Dusen also on the field again, playing double duty again. Jogs after, and this one pops up in the air. It was a throw from Besser to Perticone, and it was just simply mishandled. It was deflected, and sneaking it right behind Hallberg. He didn't see it. AT catches up with it. It's in Robarge's hands. I don't know how the hell anybody can see it out here. Excuse me. It is dark. Pat McMullen laces a backhand to Shepard, finds him in the end zone. My goodness, did they dodge one on that? That swing pass snuck right behind Hallberg's head. And now with 1:21 left, the Thunderbirds open up a 2-goal lead. It is 17-15. And Perticone had that disc in his hands. Besser sent it back to him, and it just simply jumped around. It wriggled away. This can be like a fish on a night like this. Slippery and evasive and difficult to hang on to. And that one jumped right out of the boat. And the Thunderbirds, with 1:21 left, find themselves in the lead, 17-15. What a gratifying turn of events for the Thunderbirds defensive team. And kudos to guys who are out there playing both ways. And kudos to the coaches, Coach Hammonds and Coach Lionetti, who chose their spots on this chilly night to send out their superstars, Max Shepard and Sam Van Duzen, guys who have picked their spots to go out and play both offense and defense, and both making a difference on the last 2 points. Kudos to Mo Jada, who put himself in the right place at the right time to make a play. Kudos to Ethan Beardsley. Kudos to Alex Thomas playing shutdown defense. And I think he just turned around and gave a wave to somebody in the crowd. And meanwhile, we've got a timeout right now. Detroit talking things over, the Thunderbirds on their defensive line, ready to go. And meanwhile, the only illumination coming from a darkening sky, a clear sky, thankfully, but a darkening sky, from the scoreboard. If we could get some cars up here, we could turn on the headlights, Sandlot style, and maybe illuminate this field. This is certainly something I'm sure that GM Andrew Gardner is right now looking over his contract and seeing if we can get a rental discount tonight, because we definitely rented the lights to go with the venue. And right now, they're off. We are dancing in the dark. Detroit Mechanix and the Thunderbirds locked in a pas de deux. Stick with us after the game is over. We are going to go downstairs and we're going to talk to Captain Mark Fedorenko, I believe, on the live stream, win or lose, and we're hoping it'll be win. This pull settling down, coming out of a darkening sky and settling in the hands of Fisher. Fisher looks to his left, then to his right, and throws it to Besser. Now he's got it back. Thunderbirds in that zone, making these guys strike quickly if they can. Hallberg has it now at midfield, shuffles it back to Fauerback. Fauerback takes a big throw, throws up a forehand. Trimble is back there underneath it. He has position, and he simply boxes out the receiver and makes a block. I don't see who it was who was back there with them. Yes, I do. It looks like it was Perticone. Didn't have a chance. Now they've got a double team, and it looks like there was contact on that mark. And yes, referee Heim, head referee Brian Heim was right there. And he says, yep, take 10 yards. And now Buss has the disc in his hand. And we got 36 seconds left, folks. So disc is floated up. Trimble's underneath it. He pulls it down. Just got to keep it moving. A scooper thrown into the middle of the field that Buss in front of a leaping defender goes up and catches. And then this one is thrown away. It looks to me like Anthony Kahn threw it away. And now Besser's got it, steps into a forehand, throws it out in space. He's got a receiver on the other end of it, and it is caught in the end zone, and it looks like it was Ryan Mario. And so, unfortunately, I think it was, and I don't want to indict him without cause, but I think that it was Akon who made that slightly impetuous scoober. And he's going over, he slaps hands with Trucks Trimble, the team staying together here. But it's 10 seconds left, and they got to keep control for 10 seconds, and they win the game 17-16. But boy, it just couldn't be a heck of a lot closer. We have only a little bit of light left, and you see the team huddled around coaches Lionetti and Hammonds, and they're talking about what went wrong with that point there. Really it was just a matter of maintaining possession for 36 seconds. They weren't able to do it. An errant scoober ends up being defended. Buss was unable to corral it. And now here comes the pull from the Mechanix. It is a line drive and pulled out of bounds purposely, I'm sure, so that the Thunderbirds will take possession of it at midfield. And that means that no time elapsed while the Thunderbirds were undefended. So there are 10 seconds left on the clock. Jonathan Mast takes control of the disc at the brick mark. He is marked by one man. Van Duzen tightly marked. Max Shepard tightly marked on either side of him. A vertical stack. Well, it's really more of a kind of mush downfield. Fedorenko in the middle. Beardsley closer to us. Max Shepard going deep. Jonathan Mast not tempted to throw that, but he doesn't have a lot of options, and the stall's getting up. He throws it, and Fedorenko makes a beautiful catch, corrals it. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there it is, as the lights come on. As the lights come on at Art Rooney Stadium here at Duquesne University on the Bluff, the Thunderbirds light up the sky and light up their first, the scoreboard with their first win of the season. And boy, they had to work for every single second. If Mark Fedorenko hadn't pulled that pass in, and it was a tough one. It was a tough one on the night like this. Running full speed, reached that one hand up, snatched it out of the air on the in cut, shuffled it out to Beardsley. And typical of Ethan Beardsley, who is a guy who would prefer to catch rather than throw, he caught it with 5 seconds left and realized he did not have to make a throw, and so he didn't. He put his hands above his head to signal the victory, and the Thunderbirds start the season 1-0 against a feisty Detroit Mechanix team. It was a game that was marked by errors. It was a game that was marked by players new to the team finding their place on the field, and players who are new to their roles this season growing into them. It is probably fortunate that the first opponent of the season was this Detroit Mechanix team, as the Mechanix, while they're definitely a scrappy team, are no-go, or heaven knows Madison. Things probably wouldn't have worked out quite as well as they did, but you know what? They did, and we have a victorious Thunderbirds team as they come across the stadium, come across the stands here and shake hands with the fans.
The game is number 95, Sam Van Duzen.
And I'm going to head down to the field myself right now.
One goal,
and the opportunity to talk to some of the players and get their impressions from this first game. I really want to thank you for joining us and sticking with us, and I hope that you're going to enjoy these post-game interviews. We'll send them out to you, folks from Detroit. Your team acquitted itself very well tonight, almost came into this venue and stole a game. And it seems to me that your handlers, in really, really difficult conditions, under a lot of duress, handled themselves beautifully. Moved the disc patiently and almost stole one from the Thunderbirds on their home turf. And I'm sure that you can expect good things from your team over the course of this season. So really excited and happy to come away with a victory, and a hard-earned victory. So I'm joined now right here on the field, talking into Andrew Gardner's cell phone, and also to fans in Detroit, Pittsburgh, and every place else, with Captain Mark Fedorenko. Mark, was this harder than you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, it was a game that we kind of expected. We have a lot of new faces both on O&D this year. So learning a lot of that chemistry, as well as dealing with the new wind. This is the first time we played up at this stadium. All four corners are open, so the wind's swirling everywhere, and it was evident from the number of jump balls that we came up with this game. Detroit came down with a lot of those jump balls, so I think that made the game a little closer than it arguably was. But I was really proud of the way we came together in the fourth quarter, despite playing at a deficit, especially off our D2 line. I think our D2 line played the most minutes in the entire game.
It was a really impressive performance by the D line, and there was still a timeout left on the board, and that to me showed a lot of faith from the captains and from the coaches. Thank you. Fetch goes, give me a hug, because I'm freezing, and he's been out here running around, but I've been up chilling in the press box, and it's cold out here. Let me ask you this. do you? How much credit do you give Sam Van Duzen and Max Shepard coming out and playing a little bit of defense and making a difference on those plays? How do the coaches decide when to send those guys out on defense?
Normally, we kind of decide whenever we feel like we need to add a little bit more pressure, or we need to add a different dimension. Both Shep and Sam are the two of the biggest throwers in the city, and we really wanted to open up the huck option after we got a turn. Simultaneously, both of them, Sam played on the U24 team this past summer, bringing home gold for the USA, and Shep is the same caliber player from a little lesser known school. So whenever we want to add a little more firepower offensively, as well as bring a new voice in communication, we tend to shift somebody over either from the D1 or from the O-line.
You played a bend but don't break zone against these guys. That's something that the team hasn't really been able to execute consistently over its first 3 years. Can we expect to see a lot more zone defense this year?
I think we can definitely expect to see a little bit more. We've struggled in past seasons against teams who like to get into shootouts, and offensively we'll just fade. You fade at the end of the game. I don't know if it's from a conditioning thing or if it's from other teams running better or different defensive schemes. So I think we can definitely expect to see a little bit more of it this year. I can tell you I'm definitely not as tired after a game as I usually am.
Now,
I went to the D2.
You guys have been working with Donald Robinson of Global Human Performance. Has that started to have an effect? Do you think that's going to be useful for you this season?
I think it'll definitely be useful for maintaining longevity as well as building strength throughout the season. Issues we've had in the past, we haven't had too many issues with conditioning late in the season, but maintaining explosiveness late into the game, which I suppose is kind of conditioning, is something Donald has done a great job in. Not only teaching us, but making resources of his available to us on a 24/7 basis.
Well, I've been working with him too, getting ready for Beach Nationals myself, Grandmasters Beach Nationals. So I think that's going to make a difference too. You comfortable in your role as stepping into an even bigger leadership role this year? Is that something you're looking forward to and excited about?
Yeah, especially if our calves don't cramp up like they've done every season, and they did on a couple of those points at the end there. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, as well as we have a new face in leadership this year in Jimmy Toll. He's a great loud, not just loud, but
he plays loud.
He plays loud, and he's a very enthusiastic, very good good teammate voice. Somebody to bring some fire in the huddles, which is something that we're going to be missing this year with the loss of Pat and Max, who are some of the louder and quieter voices of the team the past couple years.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of fire in the huddle, we could use some fire out here. I stopped shivering in the warm embrace of Captain Mark Fedorenko. Fetchko, great win and hard-earned win, and looking forward to a terrific season. And just keep grinding.
Thank you so much, and just a shout out to any of my friends and family who are listening. Love you all.
Thanks a lot, Mark. So that was Captain Mark. Dark and not stormy night, but the Thunderbirds brought the thunder, and they come away tonight with a big win. Final score, 17-16.